The Zulu Kingdom, also known as the Kingdom of Zululand, was a monarchy in southern Africa. The Zulu people, among the most emblematic of South Africa, are part of the larger Nguni group, including the Ndebele, Xhosa, and Swazi. The Nguni are believed to have origins in Egypt, migrating from the Nile region to settle in the Congo Basin. In the 16th century, the Zulu migrated to South Africa, from Central Africa and the Great Lakes region. One of the most renowned Zulu leaders is Shaka Zulu, a legendary chief who established a powerful kingdom in southern Africa through military conquest. During the 1810s, Shaka established a standing army that united rival clans. He expanded his territory along the Indian Ocean coast, from the Tugela River in the south to the Pongola River in the north. Shaka, born around 1787, was the illegitimate son of Chief Senzanga. Due to the circumstances of his birth, Shaka and his mother, Nandi, faced significant social stigma and rejection. Senzanga, unwilling to acknowledge Shaka and Nandi, eventually exiled them from the Zulu community. The mother and son found refuge first with the Langani people, but their stay was fraught with difficulties and humiliation. They were treated poorly and faced constant scorn due to their illegitimate status, which made their lives difficult and unstable. In search of better prospects, Nandi and Shaka moved to the Mthethwa chiefdom, where they were welcomed by Cetshwayo. As a warrior under Cetshwayo, Shaka rose to power with Cetshwayo's support, becoming king of the Zulu after his father's death. Around 1816, Shaka assumed control of the Mthethwa alliance following Cetshwayo's death. Under Shaka's leadership, the Zulu clan expanded from a few thousand to 45,000 by absorbing neighboring clans. He introduced significant military reforms, including new battle techniques, rigorous training, and the adoption of short-stabbing spears. Shaka created the Amabutho, an organized standing army, trained intensively and segregated from society. The Zulu typically took the offensive in battles, utilizing their renowned buffalo horns formation. This strategic layout consisted of 4 key elements, each comprising different Zulu regiments. The horns, consisting of younger and less experienced troops, were used to encircle and pin the enemy. These flanking units could maneuver independently as the battle required. The chest, comprised of the prime fighters, was the central force that delivered the decisive blow to the enemy. The loins, or reserves, were typically older veterans positioned further back, sometimes with their backs to the battle to maintain composure. These reserves were used to exploit successes or reinforce other units as needed. While encirclement tactics and maneuver elements were not unique to the Zulu, their exceptional organization, consistent application of these tactics, and rapid execution set them apart. Shaka's standardized military system enabled the Zulu to execute tactics with remarkable discipline and efficiency, solidifying their formidable reputation. The Zulu were originally an insignificant tribe that had migrated to the eastern plateau of southern Africa. Due to Shaka's military efforts, they became a formidable force in the region. Zwide, king of a rival tribe known as the Ndwandwe, was a thorn in the flesh of the Zulu. During an attempted invasion of Zwide's territory, Zwide captured and executed Cetshwayo. Shaka, an ally of Cetshwayo, narrowly escaped capture with the help of a local chieftain. In retaliation, Zwide ordered the deaths of 3 chieftains who were deemed to have assisted in Shaka's escape. One chief managed to escape, another was killed, and a third was captured. Zwide ordered that this chief be beheaded. His head was presented to Ntombazi, a feared sorceress who happened to be the queen and mother of Zwide. Legend has it that Ntombazi warned Zwide that keeping the head of the slain chief would bring misfortune to the Ndwandwe kingdom. In retaliation for the initial attack by Cetshwayo and Shaka, Zwide went on the offensive against the Zulu kingdom. Shaka's forces survived an attack by Zwide at the Battle of Gqokli Hill in 1818. By 1820, the stage had been set for an epic battle between Shaka and Zwide at the Battle of Mlatuze River. Soshangana and Zwangandaba fought on behalf of Zwide, and the Ndwandwe. Opposing them were Shaka, accompanied by his officers Mzilikazi, who was Zwide's grandson, and Dingane. Zwide, mistakenly believing he could catch Shaka off guard, hastily dispatched his larger army to confront the Zulu. After being forced and unable to reach the continuously retreating Zulu army, the dispirited Ndwandwe spent a cold and hungry night on the south bank of the Mahlathuze River. They were continuously harassed by the Zulu, who yelled and pretended to attack, preventing any rest. During the night, the Ndwandwe were roused by the bellowing of oxen nearby, and desperate for food, they considered pursuing the cattle. However, Soshangana cautioned them, suspecting a trap due to the empty kraals and barren lands they had encountered. Shaka had set a trap, driving a large herd of oxen near the Ndwandwe and sprinkling bovine blood to distress the animals, making their cries seem closer. Soshangana sent scouts to investigate, and the Zulu feigned panic, shouting misleading information about the Zulu nation fleeing across the Tugela River. The scouts returned, convinced that the Zulu were in retreat. In the morning, the Ndwandwe saw Zulu and cattle disappearing over distant hills and pursued them for 56 kilometers to the Tugela River. There, the Zulu stood on the opposite bank, appearing to defend the crossing half-heartedly. Soshangana, suspicious, held his troops back, recognizing the trick. The Ndwandwe decided to retreat into the Nkandla forest. Soshangana skillfully executed the retreat, unaware that the entire Zulu army of 10,000 warriors was camped nearby in the forest. Shaka revealed his plan to his commanders as the Zulu warriors grilled meat over numerous fires. A select group of 500 men was to infiltrate the Ndwandwe camp, posing as returning foraging parties. Shaka is said to have whispered to his men, "You will slither among them like snakes." That night, the Zulu infiltrators slipped into the Ndwandwe camp, muttering passwords to avoid detection. As the campfires died, the Zulu waited among the sleeping Ndwandwe. At Shaka's signal, chaos erupted. The Zulu killed their targets and then pretended to be dead. This created confusion, causing the Ndwandwe to turn on each other in the dark. Soshangana, commander of the Ndwandwe, ordered his men to gather around a large fire, trying to restore order. The Ndwandwe, unnerved and believing in supernatural forces, huddled together, facing outward. The Ndwandwe army was comprehensively beaten by the Zulus. This led to the disintegration of the Ndwandwe army. Zwide's generals and sons were forced to march northwards, splintering the Ndwandwe kingdom. This victory set off the Mfikane, scattering, causing mass migrations and conflicts among Nguni tribes in southern Africa. By 1822, Shaka had established an empire spanning approximately 80,000 square miles, from the Pongola to the Tugela rivers. Another notable Zulu leader is King Cetshwayo, who valiantly resisted European colonial encroachment. King Cetshwayo expelled European missionaries who were aligned with Western imperialism from his kingdom. He revitalized the Zulu army, restoring the formidable organization established by his uncle Shaka and had been neglected by his father. Cetshwayo recruited new soldiers and armed his battalions with muskets, effectively resurrecting the great and fearsome impi of Shaka Zulu. By this time, the British had already occupied parts of South Africa, and the powerful Zulu kingdom stood as a significant obstacle to their regional expansion. Cetshwayo initially signed an agreement with the British to weaken the Zulus' longtime enemies, the Dutch settlers, Boers. However, the British were intent on provoking a conflict with Cetshwayo to justify going to war with the Zulu. An incident of minor importance was exaggerated by Sir Henry Bartle Frere, the colonial administrator, who then issued an ultimatum to Cetshwayo, demanding the disbandment of his army. Cetshwayo did not respond, and once the ultimatum expired, British troops invaded KwaZulu, with it to destroy the kingdom. On January 11, 1879, the British killed one of Cetshwayo's vassal kings and decimated his forces. Buoyed by this victory, the British underestimated the impi and believed that the Zulu, led by Cetshwayo, would be resistant to war. The British camped at Isandlwana, where they spotted Zulu scouts. With 1,700 heavily armed men, the British followed these scouts and were utterly stunned and terrified to discover 20,000 Zulu warriors sitting in complete silence in a valley. This encounter set the stage for the infamous Battle of Isandlwana, where the Zulu forces demonstrated their formidable military prowess and the effectiveness of their revitalized army under Cetshwayo's leadership. The British, exuding the arrogance of an empire on which the sun never set, were caught off guard by the swift and ruthless Zulu warriors. The British lines crumbled under the relentless Zulu assault, resulting in one of the British Army's most humiliating defeats against what they deemed a technologically inferior force. As the sun set, the battlefield was dominated by the haunting silhouette of Isandlwana Hill, a silent testament to the empire's hubris. The British failed to anticipate the Zulus' military prowess and the intensity of their attack. Their traditional combat formation, known as the Thin Red Line, proved ineffective against the overwhelming numbers of Zulu warriors. Spread too thinly across a large front, the British were vulnerable to the Zulus' encirclement tactics. The defeat at Isandlwana highlighted that technological superiority does not guarantee victory. It emphasized the importance of respecting one's opponent in military engagements. The subsequent insignificant Battle of Rorke's Drift has gained prominence in popular culture. This minor skirmish and victory of the British over the Zulu was emphasized by the British as a form of military redemption after their comprehensive defeat at Isandlwana. A garrison of just over 150 British and colonial troops, many sick and wounded, held off a determined assault by 3,000 to 4,000 Zulu warriors. The small mission station at Rorke's Drift turned into an improvised fortress. The Zulu eventually called off the attack due to mounting losses for what was not deemed a strategically important objective. As the war progressed, the British launched brutal counter-offensives, smarting from their early humiliations and bolstered by their industrial might. The Zulus, lacking the means to match British artillery and Martini Henry rifles, fought valiantly, but were ultimately overpowered. The Anglo-Zulu War concluded with the capture of King Cetshwayo, the fragmentation of the Zulu kingdom, and its eventual annexation by the British Empire. Until the lions have their own historians, the tales of the hunt will always glorify the hunter.